Bob Brown?
He was outside on the phone.
Gentlemen, I'm Brian May. About knowing you, I'm currently the CEO over at HMX1, and on behalf of the Morgan Stern family, thank you for coming and joining us here tonight for the celebration of life for John Morgan Stern. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce Chaplain Chantan Perez.
All right, well, I didn't know Mr. Morgenstern at all, but I've heard a lot about him. I'm sure I'll hear more later. But I had the privilege to be asked to come and say a quick prayer in celebration of the life of something in mind is joining for a few moments of prayer. Father, thank you so much for the 83 years of life that you gave to Mr. John Morgenstern. It seems like he demonstrated exceptional dedication to the Marines, the mission of HMX1. And further, he demonstrated exceptional fidelity and commitment to Betty as his wife for 59 years. Father, that's just an amazing example of commitment and fidelity to his wife. And thank you for the many years you gave together. Father, you tell us in Ecclesiastes 3:2 that there is a time to be born, there's a time to die. So we thank you that we can celebrate the life that you gave to John for many, many years. I pray that you bring joy and comfort to everyone here who misses him. And I pray that you help his legacy to not be forgotten for years to come. Thank you for the food and the fellowship and the stories that we're about to hear. And praise in Jesus' name.
Thank you, Chaplain. Okay, I understand that John Morgenstern made it pretty clear that he didn't want a memorial, he did not want a funeral, he wanted a celebration of life. And what a life to celebrate. I mean, the accomplishments that he had, it's just remarkable. So I think this is the appropriate remembrance for a man who had a great life. And so I think we have a few speakers, a few gentlemen who would like to say a few words about Mr. John Morgenstern. And then afterwards, we'll continue to share stories and memories about John over a few drinks and a meal courtesy of the Morgenstern family. On behalf of the HMX family, I'd like to offer my condolences to the Morgenstern family, Miss Betty, John Richard, Sherry Ann, Lawton, Flint, and Jessica. He was such a huge part of our HMX team for so many years. He touched so many Marines who now are scattered across America. It's a remarkable legacy that he left. And we just can't imagine all the lives that he touched and all the contributions he made over his career with us. And I have to admit that until recently, I mean, I knew about his history with our squad, but I did not know about his early years. 1937, born in Germany, and then in 1944, his father was taken away to a Russian prison camp, never to return. At the age of 18, he boarded a ship to America by himself, made his way into the Air Force, met his wife Betty. In 1962, they were married. In 1964, started to work for Boeing for a few years, bounced around the country, Italy, as a field service rep for the CH-46, and in 1968 he landed at HMX1. We all know about his life from there on out. So, but I think that early history tells us a lot about his character and his appreciation for his family, his passion for his work, for the HMX team, the Marines that he served with there. It tells us a tremendous amount about how much he appreciated what he had. It's difficult for us who haven't struggled through such adversity to have the level of appreciation that he certainly had for everything that he has earned living the American dream. So it's quite a remarkable life. And we thank you for sharing them with us. It's been a tremendous career, and it's been a tremendous honor to have the opportunity to serve. So thank you. Okay, so the first person that's going to come up and speak is John's son, John Bishop.
I just want to thank everybody for coming out today. This is what my dad would have wanted. He didn't want to sit in the pew and cry. He wanted to celebrate memories with all of you that he had. He told me every day. My dad was someone that just loved his job. He loved working for Boeing. He loved working with Marines. He used to tell me, he said, you know, who gets a job to drive 7 miles through a manicured golf course to get to where you're going to work? Well, people that work. So I don't want to take too much time, but as much as you guys love my dad, he loved you back. I mean, he told stories that you guys repeated to me that it's impressive. And you'd have to pay people on the street corner to have this many people come and see me. So and let's have a good night.
Thanks, Jim, and Betty, thank you so much for this night, sharing your husband with us. So special, and we're so appreciative of that. Time sure flies when you're having fun. I'm not sure that Mr. Morgenstern would call it fun, call it passion. He'd call it endearment. He would call it love. He loved this water. John Richard's so accurate there. He loved this water so much that he loved the Sikorsky guys. Number one competitor, as Cheryl Cummings would say, who does that? John did that. I work in a role of expertise right now at U.S. Army Command. Matter of fact, U.S. Army Command is 11 years old. 11. Think about that. Think about the person that we're honoring today. God, in 11 years, he knew more about the automatic flight control system and the paint on C-46 than we'll ever know inside. Expertise, deep technical expertise was his middle name. There were 3 words that you never said in this moment. 3. Are you sure? You use those 3 words around you, right? The Oracle says, and you do. And if you don't, you do it at your own disregard. There are 2 special stories I want to share with you. Close out my time. One made his day. The second kind of ruined his day. The first story goes something like this. Colonel George Troutman calls me, my boss, never come out for aviation. He says, hey, Colonel, I'm taking your CH-53 Echoes from you. What are you going to do about it? Sir, come up with a plan. So this plan was, we're going to replace the 53 Echoes, amazing airplane. We're going to have 14 CH-46s on the flight line at HMX 1. 14. The only issue was we weren't getting any more. So 53 guys and gals had to become 46 guys and gals. I go in to see the Oracle flight, go to the trailer, I knock 3 times, and I sit down with Mr. Morgenstern to get his insight on this. I was nervous, to be honest with you. It's a big leap to expect, young men and women to do that. I sit down, tell him what I'm concerned about. He looks at me and says, you worry too much. It'll be just fine. So I get up, go on my way. I try to figure out how my risk mitigation, trying to go back to the Marine Corps to find out how to be successful, and how I'm going to translate. You're going to be just fine. But I knew. That's all he had to say. We'll be just fine. And we were. Holy cow. Those airplanes went everywhere. We flew those airplanes in Brazil and landed on the very first stadium that Pele scored his first goal as a professional. We landed in the backyard of Queen Elizabeth in Buckingham Palace. The Marines were 53, 46. They were to break those airplanes down in less than 6 hours and put them back together in less than 6 hours. Unheard of. And everybody always says, right, I've heard of HMX gold. It's total HMX has the highest rate of first term Marines than any other squadron in the Marine Corps. When people say that, run the other way. What HMX has, it's a culture. It's a culture. And that culture was bred by John Morris. Hey, you worry too much. That wasn't John, wasn't him. Deep technical competence takes away that risk. You know what he was talking about. He knew what was possible. The other event, not as fun as that event, I got selected general up to headquarters Marine Corps Deputy Commander for Aviation. I had the task of moving those 46s out and moving the B-22s in. And Mr. Morgenstern was gracious. He was great. He was not happy, but he was gracious. He was the professional that he is, and we so loved. Wasn't highlighted my career, but certainly something that we had to do with John. John was great about it. Again, gracious, very, very gracious. So that brings me back to where I started. I think every story that we will tell tonight about John, there was There's a rum and coke involved, and there's probably a cigarette involved. And for that time, right, our time at HMX, all of us will say, boy, time sure flies when you're having fun. When you're on entrepreneurs, you're having fun. All right, thanks again, Betty. God bless the whole family. Love you guys. Thank you.
Kind of the old man here tonight. And got a few things to say, but I want to tell you right now, I'm not going to be looking at Morgenstern's table because I'm going to continue. I first got to HMX in 1976, September, a long time ago. Young captain, get all these guys in the ready room, and when you're a young captain, they say you're supposed to go and, make investments, buy a house. So, okay, I guess I'll go buy a house. Anybody know a real estate agent around here that we can deal with? I said, well, yeah, John Morgenstern, our bowling guy, kind of does real estate on the side. Great, so I'll go myself. And then for the next 3 or 4 weeks, John would take me around every area around here, Vale City, Montclair, you name it, show me all the houses. When you're driving around with a guy like that for 3 or 4 weeks, it's going pretty well. Tells me the full story. I tell him my story, And finally, he found us a real nice house, and it worked out just great. And then a couple of years later, when I had to leave, he took care of it and lived it. So John was such a generous man. He didn't make anything out of me, but that started pretty much a lifelong friendship. I didn't see him after 78 or so for quite a few years when he came back here in 91. And I'll tell you a couple of things about times that we had during that tour. First thing would be in the summer of '93. I was in Hawaii, I think, and I was in Hawaii, and we had a mission out. And you remember back in '93, there were floods in Missouri and Iowa, and St. Louis, and all these places. So presidential people wanted to go out there and see the floods. But at the end of the work, they do. I was in Hawaii, and so we sent our Marine One team out there. 346s, a couple of H streets. They flew all night to get there because it was like, you got to be here tomorrow to do the HMX mission. Get out there, and the White House liaison guy tells me, well, the president wants to fly not in the White Top, the H3 wants to fly in the 46, so we can sit on the chief's seat, out the window, all that stuff. Of course, that's not the way things were done.
So I get a call from Hawaii, and bring one guy, who happened to be also 46 miles. And he tells me all that. I said, well, you know, you've got John Morgenstern, we can just do the right thing. So for the next couple of days, they flew the president around the 46, got pictures of it. There's probably some up here. I know I've got some here. Around the floods in Iowa, and then they went down to St. Louis, same thing there. And a year later, in the summer of '94, they wanted to do it again in floods in Georgia, so we sent the same guys down there. John wrote a pretty nice letter after that, you know, what a great time it was, and all the things they had to do to get ready and all that stuff. And a lot of those things that I'm talking about are still. This picture book you made up for me. 70th birthday. Okay. Moving on. Another thing that we were wanting to be introduced to was the John Morgenstern Christmas tree. Okay. What does that mean? Those of you that don't know. That means a real Christmas tree in a certain house with candles on the tree, not lights, lit candles on the tree. So I was lucky to get it twice, once when I was here in the 70s, and then with the family back in the 90s. And we have 2 girls now, and they're down there, they're lighting candles and all that stuff. And then also we have the pleasure of having the John Morgenstern blue wine. Any of you know what that is? GLUE wine, German traditional. I got the recipe here. Wine. Start with yeah, wine. And again, more of that stuff is in this nice, beautiful book that he made for me on my birthday a couple years ago. And also in the summer of '94, we had the 50th D-Day ceremony over in England and France. And, you know, for D-Day in Normandy, it's all about the Brits, the French, the Americans, not about the Germans. So we do that in June, and in July, we go over to see the Germans. We go over to see the Germans. And we had a flight to Germany with the president and all those people. We asked John before we went to go along. There weren't any 46s involved, but why would you not want John Morgenstern to take you on a trip to Germany, where he's grown up, where he can speak German, he can do his thing with all the people at the hotels. And it was just a wonderful trip. And again, he sent me pictures of that. And there's a ton more here. Jeff Bernstein. The last thing I wanted to talk about was he would give me birthday phone calls. It's sing. Sing happy birthday. Always send us Christmas cards. And then just this last, I'm sorry. But let's see, in '94, '95, in March 17th, which is St. Patrick's Day, very good. He and Jack Burns. Anybody remember Jack Burns?
Yeah.
Okay. Jack was our lead Sikorsky guy here for 25 years or so. He and John was just like this, tight. We got along well, super well, and anyway, for some reason, I don't know why, they knew I was kind of an emotional person, and St. Patrick's Day, I'm not Irish, but you know, it was a big deal. So on St. Patrick's Day in '95, both John and Jack came into the radio. Every morning at HMX, you have these small officers meetings, traditional 8 o'clock. Talk about what's going on that day or those kinds of things. And at the end of the year, John, Jeff were always there. the end of the day, when they walk in the back door, John has his accordion. You remember this, Craig? Yes, sir. John has his accordion, and he and Jack sing Danny. You know, everybody knows the story. The song was written in like 1910 through 1913, written by an English guy. And you can think about it, remember the lyrics, you can fit just about any of these combinations to mean something to you. Some people think it's for a boy going off to fight the Irish Rebellion in 1910. Others think it was a father sending his son out to fight in World War I. Some think it should be sung by a man to his son, others by a mother to her son, or a wife to her husband going off to war. And it's a very special thing. I was going to kind of read through the lyrics, but I'm not, so I could be able to make it through there either. So thank you very much. I really love Johnny. He's a special guy. He was generous to a fault. I can't tell you how much he told me about John Richard. It's progressed through his career. You know, so proud of John. And, you know, every time you were doing something for the house, the compound, when you work, you know, we always heard that. Just a wonderful guy. Thanks for your attention. If anybody wants to see this thing, I got it over there. Anybody wants copies of these pictures? Be happy to. Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir. It's a privilege to hear. On this day, 2005, everything is full of Federal Virginia was on the way. Kind of left Chow, bringing two young sons, Eastern Junior, pilots, and we have a bunch of red meat, red wine, young lad, all the way to 12, my youngest son Robert, but officially because he's huge now. That was the first time I met him, and there was just this absolute difference. They were very special. If you could possibly sum up a life of childhood in 2 words, which you really can't, but the 2 would be love, joy. His love for his family, absolutely unbounded. When the time that I had the privilege to be with them, that we didn't talk about the study. And by the way, I never called him by his first name. He's Mr. Morgenstern. I wouldn't do it. I never saw Junior O'Connell do it. And he was always Mr. Morgenstern. So, sir, I'm not calling you by your first name before either. You're Mr. Morgenstern. Love and joy. His love for his family. Second place, by the way, not even close second place, which is still good. Squadron, which photo finish, Marines, all Marines. At the end of the day, we also had an undying love for all folks that serve. We're always thrilled when they come up to New York and have an excuse to stay all night. This is Brother says, wait with Marines, what could possibly go wrong? And each time I walk into some joint that I join to, Mr. Morgenstern and Cub and the staff would raise their hand and say, Mr. Morgenstern, my joint, I don't even get a hello. And the entire staff would come out of the place. And somebody would inevitably bring him a rum and coke and a tall glass. Teach Chop House has been doing business since 1865 in New York. They're a great place. And these things called the Lunga dinners up there. I stopped in there 2 days after Mr. Morgenstern left us. And the general manager buying tickets came over and said, hey, and I told her, she had tears rolling down the side of her face. She was speechless. She turned and she walked away. She went and met some of the other senior staff, served at my table. The tears rolled down the face of each and every one. And then they came over and they brought this plate pipe, which he's famous for. We have thousands and thousands of them. And they came back over with a pipe with Mr. Morgenstern's name on it, which is now going to hang forever. His shop house in between Babe Ruth, Teddy Roosevelt. He had a love for those who served, whether they were serving a child, whether they were serving the country. And it was always delivered joy. It was always a joy for me to be with him, my family to be with him. There's some pictures here of one of my daughters that, I actually didn't think I was a bad guy. Maybe one that I really didn't think I was that bad guy. My mom made a picture of her next to the front of her friend, Mr. Morgenstern. My daughters and my adopted daughter, Robert's bride, would always be able to come for 8 minutes to the Hungry dinner to pay their respects to Mr. Morgenstern. And they would come and they would give him a hug, they would give him a peck on the cheek, and they would take a picture, and they would catch up with him. And I'd say, leave now. Because at some point, all the rest of the other Marines in the room, without a doubt, guys that just checked in, said this next guy, whoa. I said, you know, look at your shoes. He had that way with women folk, he had that way with men folk. It's just an abject love, affection, and he brought joy wherever he went. I will miss him for all of my days. Miss Betty.
John always told me not to be embarrassed, take your notes. Make sure you get it right. Betty, John, and we'll please accept. I'm one of the fortunate ones that's been able to experience John on a regular basis for 36 years. We traveled together supporting the squad for 30 years. At each location, we sought out good food and drink and perhaps something to do or see. Always the conversations that we about families. And on the project, guys are no project, we're always prepared those. After John's retirement, we tried to meet for lunch weekly to continue our friendship. We were pretty successful until 2020 came along, but we kept in touch in the evening. John would always say what was on his mind, but that was the good German. John was always on top of the little things. He knew when your birthday was, and he gave more handmade gifts than anyone I know. I'll venture to say that the majority of those here, if it goes back to something. But that's just the way he was. If he told me once, he told me a dozen times that there would not be a funeral, but a happy celebration of life. So this is my happy story. John and I ended up together in Arkansas on one of our adventures. Now you got pictures. You got no job. John had an Arkansas dirt track on a Friday night in between races, standing up on his bleacher seat, waving his arms and singing at the top of his lungs, "All my exes." Wonderful. That was one of my favorite memories of John. A couple of days later, it was his birthday, and leave it to John, only he could find a keg of beer in a dry county. Good time was had by all. The keg ended up flowing in the pool. John, I miss you.
Okay, Mr. Morgenstern. So Colonel or General Lady made a pronounced sentence on the frog, but I'm the guy who actually carried out the execution because I was the last CO of John's frog. So there's a picture. It's right over there. It's flashing on the screen. That's John kissing the chin bubble of a frog in Florida the day we gave the last frog away to the State Department. Not a happy day for John, but great trip. We went to the bar after that. The rum and coke appeared, appropriately made in the right class, and we were on to talking about tests. You know, so John used to switch like that. So John, if you think about it, into the squadron. When he joined the squadron had only been in business carrying the president for 7 years. We hadn't even figured out how to do it. John was a plank of the squadron and supporting the president. Everything we do now, John had to be in. He built that. That's all him. So the legacy is far beyond just the frogs in the squadron. It's HMX mission. So never for a minute think that John's influence didn't expand far beyond. It already got touched on the 46 community. If you think about the number of 46 pilots and crew chiefs and maintainers that went through this squadron over 40 plus years, I bet you there is no more than 2 degrees of separation between any person who ever was part of the Frog Community Marine Corps and John Morgenstern. John's DNA is frog DNA. Went from this squadron back out to the fleet, cycled back into this squadron, back out to the fleet. It permeated. Everybody knew. I knew him before I ever got here. I've been here for 20 years. Yeah. Mr. Morgenstern. Terrified when I got here and had to fly back in the airplane. So John also knew every one of the COs when they were captains or majors. So John would always tell us the way he saw it. Guaranteed, no sugarcoating. John was going to tell you what he thought. And that was always really good. You're going to get the right thing from John. So it comes time for John to retire. And, word filters up to the White House that Mr. Morgenstern is retiring after 40 plus years with HMX. Contractors do not normally get farewell photos of the President of the United States in the Oval Office. But they're like, oh no, get him up here. We're going to have him meet the President, and we're going to have him do the farewell photo. So John goes up. President Obama, so many years, how is it? What's the secret to your success, your long life, all that sort of stuff? John was the president of Camel cigarettes and Roman Coke. You've got 12 people, senior people, who go like that and wait to see what the president's going to do. President Obama did that, and he's like, oh, everybody goes, oh. John, tell it to you like that, and that's it, you're going to get it. So it's been talked about here the things John loved, and I thought about it, made a list. And some of them we talked about. Love his Roman code, love the country, love the squadron, clearly love the 46. There was one guy left out. He loved his Mercedes sedans. It was always good. When John got a new Mercedes, what was it? Everybody was interested when that happened. So, and then, the one thing I do know is Betty, you and the family, absolutely, hands down, no question. You guys are the first love back in wine. So thank you very much for sharing. And the last thing, and I thought about this, what was John's role, really? So there is a principle in navigation that you need to have a fixed point in space. You have to know where you are relative to something else in order to be able to navigate. Long before there was GPS, when GPS actually is the same principle, you had to do that. There was the North Star, a fixed point in space. You weren't always driving towards it. Maybe you didn't think that. John was the fixed point in space. He knew exactly where he was, exactly what he thought. Now, maybe he went that direction, maybe he deviated a little bit to the right, found out that he did. But he was that reference point. Never changed 40 years, always the same, always going to give you that fixed reference point that you can navigate off. Whether it was the CO, whether it was the maintenance department, regardless, he was that reference. We won't have that. Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, those are all of our pre-planned speakers, and unless there's someone impromptu who would like to make comments, we can adjourn to celebrating drinks, enjoying dinner.
Good evening. My name is Jean Arcamini, and my dad was Sergeant Major at HMX, probably back. And there's a whole other side of John Morgenstern that I just think, right? So John Morgenstern loved to sail, and he was the Commodore at Quantico. John Morgenstern would cut hair for the neighborhood children. And you can only imagine what that must have been like. I have pictures of my twin sister holding her ponytail because mom would say, it's time for you to go see John Morgenstern. And we would walk through the neighborhood. And he was a part of the community, so in addition to being a part of all of you, which he talked about nonstop, he had other connections and he was treasured there as well. But John Richard, you talk about people not lining up. I grew up with your dad, and all we ever heard about was John Richard. And nobody talked about you and Michelle and your kids. Like, that was the conversation at Christmas and Thanksgiving. And his Christmas letters, anybody get his Christmas letter, right? His Christmas letter for 59 years was about his family. So, and Benny, I mean, most of those letters were about how you took care of him. And then in these last few years, every time I saw him, he loved that he was able to take care of you and be with you. And I would bring over the ornaments. He had the ornaments every year. And last year he stopped me in the driveway. Like, no, you're not going in, because we didn't have the vaccination yet. So I said, can I wave to her in the window? He just wanted to protect you and love you. And so I appreciate everything. I just thought you guys might also want to know that he was a big deal at the Botox. And he was a really big deal at Barnett Circle. When my parents needed their kitchen redone, he redid it. He was generous with his time all the time. So we're going to miss him, but we're there for you.
I shouldn't do this, I always get in trouble and wonder what I said the next day. I'm Tom Bruce. John was more or less my defense attorney for most of my 12 years at H&X. In 50 years that I knew him, he was either getting me out of trouble or in trouble. I've known him longer than you. I came back from Vietnam and there I was sitting on a tow tractor. He was walking across the flight line and he paid a nickel for coffee and I took it. And he wiped his 6-inch ruler on his white socks. And like he did every day. A great man. Until he got in trouble or got me out of trouble. Why I was in Berlin during the skinhead demonstration and Colonel Johnson said that's where we shouldn't be. He was driving. Oh my God, it's a drive. He can drive something just does on the street. He's one superhuman man. I never understood why he would sit on the center constant stare, and I couldn't. But he got away with it. And then every year, there's only 2 pilots and didn't go around with it. And that was the new one, same thing in the squad, and let's go. The right seat, to the left seat, leave it alone. John was going to stop there, he always did. But John Richard, you're going to be John Richard. You're not going to be Sam Richard. Betty and Mom, I'll stop by. You may have to give a phone out of the state. But he's a fine individual, and we're all going to miss him. Thank you.
I'm Joanne Markey, and John and I spell our names. I have the pleasure of living in Red Oak Lane with Betty and John Richard, and always will be John Richard. We've all spoken about what a man was. Well, I was married to Marie, And I still do not love the green on his marriage, but I love him. Jack was my boy. And I had him in the grass, and there he was. So he saw me one day, next time it came time to mow the grass, he challenged you, John Richard, do you remember that? And they're there, and they're in a race to see who can get it done. Well, as time progressed, my daughter became of age to drive. I said, don't worry, I'll teach you how to drive. Well, that's not exactly the way it went. When it came time for Katie to drive at the time, listen, I can't do it either, but John Richard will. John Richard pulled into my house. An hour and a half later, Katie's coming back, she's driving stick, there's no puppy, the whole 9 yards. But there's a story about Betty you need to know too. My daughter said that she wanted to have her bedroom painted blue for Christmas. Now, we talked about the Christmas tree and everyone knew about all the special German food that Betty made and prepared for the Christmas tree celebration. 3 days before Christmas, and it may have been 2, Betty comes over to my house. She's got paint, she's got a ladder, and she said, I said, what's going on, Betty? She goes, I'm going to paint Katie's bedroom for Christmas. This is the more experience. Michelle and John Richard, thank you for this beautiful children that you've given Betty and John. Thank you for sharing.
Anyone else? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for coming this evening. Enjoy the food and drink provided by the Morgenstern family. And enjoy the rest of the evening.